Welcome to the Roadmap to Secure Love. In today's episode, Kim and Kyle discuss the impact of shame on relationships and how to build shame resilience. Let's dive in.
Today, Kim and I want to talk about shame. We see shame as this kryptonite to secure connections, to secure relationships, because it robs us of our sense of self, our power, and our ability to grow. Kim, can you talk a little bit about kind of shame and how it is so powerful in interfering with secure connection?
Yeah, shame is tricky. I mean, that's, any kind of work with Brene Brown, when
Mhm.
she's done so much around shame and around studies on how it can impact us. And it's tough. Okay. It's tough because what shame tells us is that I am bad. At the core of myself, I am bad. It's different than guilt.
Mhm.
Guilt says I've done a bad thing. Okay, I've done a bad thing or I've done an unhelpful thing. But this says, I am a bad person. And shame tends to be super, super, super loud,
Mhm.
super powerful. And it becomes so loud that it's hard to hear anything else but that message of, I'm bad, I'm not successful, people don't like me, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable enough. It becomes the loudest voice, and it's hard to hear anything else.
It really is. I mean, we see this with our clients. I know that's something I've experienced, right? Our partners can look us in the eye and say, no, you are worth it. I choose you. I want to be in this relationship with you. And here's all the evidence of how great of a person you are. And we'll look at our partner and not be able to take that in.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, we'll have a marriage more with shame than our own partner because shame is that powerful. And that, I mean, just like we said, it's the kryptonite. It makes us so weak and so blocked from being open to other things because of how intense and overwhelming it is.
Yeah. It's so, so, so loud.
Mhm.
And in therapy, it's difficult to fight through
It really is.
because the partners are looking at the person who's feeling shame and saying, I love you, I'm there for you, I don't think this about you. And the other partner who's feeling the shame says, nope, it's true, I'm worthless,
Right.
I'm a nobody.
Mhm. No matter
And
what
it
you get.
blocks, yeah, it blocks everything.
Mhm. What we want to dive into today is starting with understanding where shame is born,
Yeah.
how we even start to get this idea of who we are is unlovable, broken, and that something is inherently wrong with us that can never be changed. So, Kim, how is shame born?
Yeah, it comes from a wound. It comes from a wound. Let's say I'm a kid and I've spilled something,
Mhm.
and a caregiver looks at me and says, why did you spill that? That was so dumb of you. You're so clumsy. That's going to become my narrative.
Mhm.
But if I spill something as a kid and they go, so what? So you ruined something. Who cares? We can go out and buy it again. Or that stain's always going to remind us of you. Who cares? Shame is birthed from wounds that was not met by a secure connection.
Mhm.
Wounds are there. And when secure connection doesn't comfort them, shame is birthed.
Yep. And this is what's so powerful. I mean, when we make mistakes, especially as a kid, how our parents respond to us then becomes our internal voice, right? And can be sometimes where our shame grows is if we got shamed for making a mistake, well, then we start to internalize that something must be wrong with me that I can make a mistake,
Yeah.
right? So then that means I have to be perfect to be loved, which is, as we talked about in earlier episodes, perfection is the block to connection.
Yes.
And so that is one way in which it happens. Another way is we do something that we feel embarrassed, we feel bad about, and there's no one to sit with us in that overwhelming experience. And we might make sense of it by going, something's wrong with me. So, example, if you grew up with alcoholic parents and you tried all these different strategies to get them to stop drinking because that's what you needed to feel safe, and they wouldn't, you might internalize that as, what's wrong with me that my parents won't do what I need to feel safe? I must not be worth it. Something must be wrong with me that they can't hear me.
Yeah.
And so this wound, without secure connection, without understanding of complexity, without someone coming in and helping us make sense in a healthy way, then starts to become the loudest voice in the room to try to help us navigate the world.
Yeah. And man, it is strong. It is really strong. There is a therapist who came up with a theory. His name was Carl Whitaker. And what he talked about is that if a kid failed a grade or failed a test or did something, his response would be, "That is great. I am so glad because now you know that that's not going to crush you."
Mm,
Okay. He believed in celebrating and supporting the things that don't work out well because it was important to build resilience, to be like, so what?
mhm,
Who cares? It happened. Okay. It didn't crush you. You have an opportunity to learn. You got more information. You
mhm,
know what to do next. Look at all the things we gained from that quote unquote failure,
mhm,
right? But when we don't have that kind of secure connection that says, awesome, that didn't go the way that you wanted, and you survived. Look at you. If we don't get that, and instead we get, why did you do that? What was wrong with you? You didn't put in the time. You didn't work hard enough. Shame takes root. And I got to tell you, it's a little bugger. Once it takes root, it's like I'm not going anywhere
mhm.
because it's trying to protect us from feeling that feeling of not being good enough. And it's like I would rather put my own self down than to ever feel you put me down.
Right. So this is one of the things that Brene Brown talks a lot about, and we see too. It's almost like if I can beat you to the punch before you might emotionally hit me with how I've messed up, if I'm already in that place, it's not going to hurt as much what you're saying because I'm already hurting myself for it.
Yeah.
And that's that protection you're talking about. It then becomes our way of which we look at these experiences and go, okay, well, I already feel like I'm an awful person that I made a mistake. And then if you remind me or tell me that I did poorly, I'm already in that place. It's not going to be more intense because I'm already feeling that. I'm already feeling like crap.
Yeah.
The Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and then the partner's like, um, you didn't do this. You're a loser. Why weren't you there? Look how awful you are. And we're like, yep,
Mhm. You're right. I know. That's who I am.
that feels a lot safer than saying, wait, what? Ouch.
Mhm.
That's how you view me? I hurt you? Ooh, that doesn't feel good. I'd rather just be like, yeah, I did those things. Yep, I'm a loser. Yep, got it. Check, check, check.
Mhm. And so this is where shame actually becomes a function of protection for us, right? It allows us to not get as impacted emotionally or hurt by by someone's disappointment, by someone being upset by something we don't do. It also serves as a protection by focusing on what we have to do or should do to be perfect, to not feel this way.
Mm.
Kim, can you talk about kind of the check behavior of shame and how that shows up?
Yeah, shame has a checkbox and a checklist that's like forever long of
Mm,
all the things that they need to do to make sure that they please others, to make sure that they feel like they're good enough.
mhm,
And shame doesn't understand that it's never enough. I bought the flowers. I cleaned the table. I took out the garbage. I want to be fine. Your partner's still going to come back and say, why didn't you do?
mhm,
Right? It strips us of our humanity. Shame does.
mhm.
It strips us from being human and not getting it right, or trying hard and missing the mark, or trying hard and getting it.
Right.
And has this long list of all the things we should do to be perfect. And guess what? There is no place in that checklist that gives permission for us to be human.
Right. It robs us of our humanity.
Robs us.
Yeah, and this is what's so painful is that's what our partners get in relationship too. They get this brick wall that what they see is all the items we're supposed to do to be a good enough partner, and we keep asking for more items and more items and more items. And meanwhile, behind that wall, there's no space for us to feel safe in growing and learning and just existing. It becomes more of a performance. Okay, if I just do this, if I just do this, then you'll finally love me. But the problem is that makes our worth contingent on our actions and blocks us from being able to feel loved as we are and grow and do things that are healthy and help our relationship.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking about a very common cycle that Kyle, you and I see a lot, which is somebody has shame.
Mhm,
And then all of a sudden, the partner tries to tell them how they feel. And because shame is there, they go down into shame. And then the other partner that has these feelings, that actually has some disappointment, never gets those needs met because shame becomes so big.
mhm,
And so that cycle is, hey, you actually did hurt me. And I need to share that with you so that we can repair, so that we can be close, so that you get to know me. And then all of a sudden, shame gets so, so big,
mhm,
and the other partner can't hear it. Says, yes, I'm a terrible person. I'm all this. Yes, I get it. You hate me. You want to divorce me. You want to leave me. And then the partner that actually needs the comfort doesn't get it.
yeah, we're all-
Usually they end up trying to soothe shame.
Right.
And then they're left alone with these feelings. And so what do? They get frustrated with shame. They get frustrated with their partner. They start pulling away. Go, I can't tell you anything.
Mhm,
Every time I try to tell you something, it's about you and how bad you feel. You never make any space for me.
mhm.
What about me? Another check mark listed on your little list that you can't check off because shame is so loud.
Right. It really gets in the way. It gets so loud that it blocks us being able to see how our behavior has impacted our partner, right? And this is one of the big things, the difference between shame. Shame says something's wrong with who I am at my core. Guilt is something my behavior didn't go in the way I intended. I can grow with guilt. I can learn from it. I can sit with how my behavior negatively impacted you as my partner, even if that wasn't my intent. And we can learn, and I can be there for how it impacted you. Shame, there's no room for that. Shame says, wow, I'm not perfect. I hurt the person I love most in the world. What is wrong with me that I even hurt this person? I must be evil. I must be this huge monster. How do they even love me? How do they even want to be with me? Why do they even want to talk to me about this? And all of a sudden, we're isolated in this box emotionally, and our partner's on the outside trying to knock. Hey, hey, come sit with my pain. Hey, I need you. Be with me. Connect with me. I really need your reassurance. I need you to see me. And we can't.
Right. You said something just now that was so powerful. I almost wanted to jump like through the screen or through this audio, depending on how you're listening to this. You said growth can happen with guilt,
Mhm.
right? Like I feel guilty about that. I'm sorry I did that. I own that. I'll change. There's growth in that. There's space for growth. Shame keeps us stuck. I'm bad. I'm awful. I'm gonna freeze.
Mhm.
Guilt, you can grow. Shame, you're gonna get stuck.
Absolutely.
That's huge.
It is huge. And I mean, this is the part where we, while shame might be trying to protect us in the best way it knows it can, try to make us always hurt so we don't get hurt worse, it sabotages our growth. It blocks us from connecting with our humanity and being able to become secure and resilient in growing and learning, which is a normal, healthy function of life. And so, what I want us to go into is I want us to talk about how does someone who's living with shame, kind of this loud voice, it shows up in their relationships, it might show up in work, it might show up in how they look at their body, it might show up in all these other ways. How can they start to fight shame so they can make space for other voices, love, connection, their humanity, for growth?
Yeah, this is hard because when you fight shame, it's not gonna give up very easily. It's gonna really fight for its place because it's like, I've got to protect you. 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 So stay small, stay wounded, stay at the fault. It will help you from being hurt. And it also keeps you stuck.
Mhm.
So to go from shame, we've got to make space for other stories. So when we say we're bad and our partner looks at us and says, actually, you're not, I love you. I just need this thing to change. But you as a human are great. We have to make space for that and go, okay, I'm going to try to believe in that for a moment.
Mhm.
When we try to make that shift in our mind, shame's going to fight us. It's going to say, no, don't believe that. Don't believe that. And so you're going to say, thank you, shame. I'm going to ask you to move aside, and I'm actually going to make space for my partner to tell me that it's okay to be human. And shame's going to come right back. And
Mhm.
you're going to have to say, I'm sorry, shame, thank you. I'm going to actually, for this moment, believe that I'm human and it's okay and I'm lovable. And you know what's going to come up? Anxiety. Sitting in that and saying, okay, I'm going to trust my partner's love for me. I'm going to trust that it's okay that I was human is going to make me anxious.
Mhm.
Because what if that changes? And so we have to be willing to tolerate the anxiety, Kyle.
We do.
to start to move out of the shame.
Mhm. And this is what's so challenging, right? Sitting in that anxiety is sitting in uncertainty. It's in a way kind of taking off this armor that has tried to keep us safe and protected and walking into kind of some foreign territory, some unfamiliar land in a way. And that anxiety is going, oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Because it feels uncertain because we've been living with this shame for so long.
Mhm.
And it's if we can tolerate that uncertainty and continue to make space for our partner's voice, it can really lead to us internalizing that and externalizing the shame. Because just as we talked about, shame says we're not good enough. Our partners can look us in the eye and in the most genuine way say we are good enough. The behavior is what bothers them most, and they want to work with us to change that. And we will then not trust our partner's heart, but end up trusting shame, which kind of, in a way, kind of creates an emotional affair. I'm going to be more connected with shame than I am with you as my lover, as my partner. And that is what leaves them on the outside and us feeling stuck. And so if we can make space that even if we make mistakes, even if we do things that hurt our partner, we are still human, doing the best that we can. And that means that we can still grow and learn. Because if we can't grow, if shame says something's wrong with us, we're going to try to cope with that, numb out, do whatever we can, maybe even shame our partner. So just to try to get away from those feelings momentarily. But
Yeah.
all those strategies make it impossible for us to grow and do things differently. The way into healing is to fight shame. And again, Kim, I really loved how you appreciated shame first. Acknowledge you have been trying to protect me. Thank it for the ways it's trying to protect you and ask it to be a little bit quieter so there can be space for something else. That's called our parts work, right? We're working with shame as an emotion. Inside Out does this very well,
Mhm.
right? That movie and seeing shame as something other than ourselves allows us to get enough space to then create space internally for something new, which is our humanness, our lovability, just as we are, which then creates the fertile ground for growth and us to do behaviors that are different and more in alignment with who we are as a human.
Mhm. Yeah. And this journey is possible. I used to live in a lot of shame. I'm an awful person. I'm a terrible person. I do gross, right?
Mhm,
And then when I started saying, no, I'm allowed to be human. I'm allowed to make mistakes. I'm allowed not to get it perfect.
mhm,
The anxiety came in. And I began to say, well, if you don't do it perfect, then you're not a great mother, wife, um, therapist, friend, um, the list, daughter, the list goes on, right? Um, and I'd have to keep saying, no, I am good at all of those things. And I'm human. I'm not perfect, but I'm human. That doesn't mean I get a pass and not apologize. So I admit that I'm human and I still apologize and I let that be okay. I let that be enough.
mhm,
I allow myself to be human. So once I've learned and I'm continue to learn how to sit in the anxiety of that and to keep fighting, like, no, I'm not going to go back. It's okay that I made a mistake. No, it's okay that I made a mistake. And sometimes I need to call the people in my life that are secure, the people that I give permission to speak to my life into my life, my husband, even my daughter, Kyle, you're one of them, where I can go and I can go, hey, this is how I'm feeling. And they tell me the truth about me and I make space for it. They give me permission to not be okay and not be perfect. And I go, "Oh, okay, thank you."
mhm,
When I can do that, I can arrive at peace. Shame comes up to Kim. I go, not today, brother. Not today. Right? I have to fight. And then I'm going to feel anxious. And I can fight within myself and say, Kim, you're allowed to be human. Or I can go to my people
mhm.
and go, I need help.
Hmm.
I need you to help me see that I'm okay.
Right.
And when I allow them to speak that into me, peace comes.
Beautiful. And this is why Kim and I call this podcast the roadmap to secure love, because that is a roadmap
Mhm.
right there. That wound is getting activated again. We could go back to the same strategy we've had, which is shame ourselves. But right there, Kim is demonstrating, okay, here's that familiar path. I've been down that. And I know internally I can try to be secure with myself. And if that doesn't work fully, that doesn't mean anything's wrong with me. That doesn't mean I'm broken. That means I need a secure connection with someone else. So, who are those trusted others who I can open my heart up to, who I can let them see the shame that's here, and I can trust their connection? I can trust their heart and take it in and make it louder than the shame.
Right.
That is healing. And the more and more that happens, the more we do build that internal resistance to the shame, because we have that experience of in the wound, the secure connection that makes the wound less big, starts to protect it. It's never going to go away, but it's what we do when it gets touched.
Mm. Yeah. And if you notice, when I spoke about the people that I allow to help me through shame, it was very small.
Mhm.
Not everybody is worthy to sit at the table to speak about your worth. Guard it. Guard who you allow to speak into your life.
Mm.
Guard it. Guard it, guard it, guard it. Not everybody is worthy just because they're in your life. But if they can see you and make space with you and willing to work with you, to tell you the good and to tell you the parts that are struggle and to be with you and to love you through it, worthy to be at the table.
Right. And Kim, the reason you're saying this, I mean, this goes into Brene Brown, right? Brene Brown had a book called Braving the Wilderness, and it was about kind of what, soft front, firm back, something like that, strong back, soft front. That we can't let everyone in, because other people that we might let in, they might be struggling and their shame might come out and then reinforce our shame. And then we go, yep, that's the truth. And so we do have to be wise of the people in our lives, of who is soft, who are those people that can show up securely and openly and accept their own humanity and can accept my humanity, so that I can heal and grow, right? It is going to only reinforce shame if we go to someone who also is struggling with shame and might use their shame to try to
Mhm.
protect us, but it only reinforces that voice about we have to be perfect to be loved. And that gets in the way of us to grow and heal and do the hard work.
Yeah. So listen to this roadmap. Kyle, this is pretty good, right?
Mhm.
We're going to name shame. Kyle and I are big about naming everything, right? Own it, name it. We call it into different things. We're going to own shame. We're going to name it.
Mhm.
We're going to think it and ask it to get smaller. And we're going to get anxious. And we're going to tolerate that. And we're going to tolerate that by sitting with ourselves and saying we can do it, or we're going to ask for help from people who are worthy to sit at our table,
Mhm. Who
to
see our
speak into our
humanity.
lives, who can see our humanity and who can love our humanity. And then we're going to arrive at peace. And this 3-step thing, you might have to do that journey several times a day
Mhm.
for years. I'm finding sometimes I feel so much peace in certain areas of my life, and then all of a sudden something new comes up. I'm like, ooh, shame's back.
Mhm.
Okay, I gotta sit through the anxiety. Okay, I gotta ask for help.
Right. What I love, Kim, is you're modeling that these 3 steps on this roadmap is the way to shame resilience, right?
Shame, resilience, yes.
It's facing shame and being resilient in the face of shame, rather than letting shame hijack and take over. And that is where the space of growth, where we can learn, where we get to accept our humanity, that we that that we then get to lean into a secure connection within ourselves and with those special others.
Love it.
Thanks for joining us on the roadmap to secure love. Today's key takeaways are 1. Shame blocks connections. 2. Understanding the differences between guilt and shame. 3. Shame emerges in the absence of secure connections. 4. Build resilience against shame by tolerating uncertainty. And 5. Pursue secure relationships to overcome overwhelming shame. We hope you found this episode insightful and empowering. Remember to subscribe and leave a review. Until then, stay connected and keep listening with love.